Welcome to Green Flag Attraction Podcast, a relationship podcast designed to help you uncover your red flag addiction and
create your own green flag style attraction. I am super excited for episode 3 because we are going to dive into navigating the balance of independence and intimacy. And for a self-loving queen who didn't always love herself, I think that it's such an important topic to talk about self-love, how that plays into intimacy, and the importance of both, and kind of like, is it realistic?
yeah, if you can't love yourself, how can you expect to love anyone else?
It's true.
Yeah.
So let's dive on in. So I think that first off, knowing what independence looks like to you is really important, because independence can mean so many different things, and knowing what it means for you and what it means to your partner is really important.
Yeah, and it's also understanding where independence lies on your value system, right? Within your value system, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes some people that you know are 100%, their life is dictated off of independence, right? Like that's their number one value. They want to be able to pack up, go on a trip, do whatever they need to do on a moment's notice without ever having to check with anyone or do anything. And hey, that's a number one value. And there's other people that have no value of independence, right? They want to spend all of their time with family or with friends, or they are, constantly wanting to be in groups of individuals. So I think it's knowing where independence is and how important independence is to you.
Yeah. I think that also when you're creating like that level of independence for yourself, also within an intimate relationship, it also takes knowing where that falls for your partner and respecting it, even if it's not the same as you. Like this does fall differently for us. So this is a great conversation for us to have, because we are definitely independent in different ways. So like, what does independence look like for you?
Yeah, and that's why we brought up earlier about knowing where independence is on your values, right? And knowing, and a lot of it comes to how you were raised as a child. Like I grew up with the ultimate amount of independence growing up, like free range parenting, go out, play until the lights come on, all that good stuff. There was no micromanaging. It was just free range. So I always had as much independence as I wanted or needed as a kid. And then I went into the military, and then that independence obviously is driven by other people. So I think for me, independence isn't as much of an important, like it's not as high of a value it is as you, right?
Yeah.
Like you value your independence. Like you like to have time alone. I could care less if I have time alone, right?
Yeah.
Like having time for myself. Yeah, it's nice here and there, but then I'm typically not living in my values, so I'm feeling bad about spending time for myself. You know what I mean? Because it's not a high value of mine per se.
You
Doesn't mean that
definitely
it's wrong.
do love connecting. And it's so funny because we come from such opposite upbringings, and now we're opposite of as adults, where you had that freedom and independence as a child, and now you're not, like, you enjoy the connection more as an adult, whereas I grew up in an extremely conservative family. I didn't have that freedom of choice, and so now independence is something that I highly, highly value as an adult, because I didn't see so much of that as a child. So it is interesting to see how the pendulum can swing.
But it's a great topic to talk about when it comes to relationships, because this is probably one of the biggest, next to like money and whatnot, it's probably one of the biggest disagreements people get in relationships, because they're taking all of their traumas from their childhood and bringing them into play or they're overanalyzing, their mind reading, as we said in episode 2, right? Is they're trying to figure out, okay, well, why doesn't this person want to spend time with me?
Yeah.
Why does she need to go on a girls trip? Well, I can't go. Why are I invited? Like, why I thought that was our weekend? And then all these stories take over, or can take over, of what's going on. What is she not telling me? And a lot of it comes down to trust, right?
Yeah.
And before, I never knew that was typically what was happening. I didn't know that because that was something that was an adjustment for me, right? Is the last relationship I was in, I think we were together too much unhealthy, right? And I think we spent a total of 2 weeks in 10 years, like ever not together. And it wasn't consistent. It was just, pieced together over that amount of time. So I was just so used to doing everything with my partner and not having a life outside of the relationship, right? Which definitely isn't healthy.
Yeah.
But it was when we first got together, it was an adjustment I had to make, right? Because I automatically went to like my traumas of like abandonment and things like that, growing up and things of, oh, well, why doesn't she want to hang out with me? Well, what's going on? What did I do? And it was always focused on me, right? And I was so focused on myself all the time, right, that it caused me to mind read and make up all these stories when I didn't realize or know at the time that it was such a high value for yours.
Yeah.
So it's just knowing your values and being able to share those with your partner.
I think it also does take courage to be independent in a relationship. It takes courage to date someone who's independent, and it takes courage to also be independent, because highlighting and going back to traumas, as you were talking about, I've been in relationships in the past where I was cheated on when I went out of town. And so coming into the relationship with you, it was like, okay, I still want to value my independence, but I need to do it in a way that feels safe for me. And it did feel super scary. I remember the first time I went out of town where it was like, okay, this is not the same person, that like I am allowed to have healthy independence. And so if you are not trusting, I think, of yourself and as of your partner, independence can feel a lot more scary, as opposed to it being such a healthy, freeing outlet for you to truly just explore what you want and to become the best version of yourself. I mean, I have had so much fun being independent and doing things outside of you that have allowed me to grow and bring us closer together.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, and it's nothing, it's not right or wrong to want to have independence or not have independence. It's just realizing what's important to you.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the main focuses of our podcast, right? Is just people understanding what it is they actually truly want and deserve in life.
Yeah. So what are some actionable strategies for balancing personal freedom, which essentially are like your individual needs, with like your partner and like that commitment to each other? I think the first question, and I know we have 4 here, is like figuring out what your goal is in this season of life. So as you cultivate your independence, are you doing that like for you individually? Are you doing that as a couple? And how does that tie into like your individual and joint goals? And I think that it's important to ask that question, because this has shifted for us multiple times in our relationship, where we have had different amounts of like working on our personal goals versus our couple goals, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and also being both being entrepreneurs and both working on like several projects at one time and having multiple going on. Plus, I have a son half the time, so we have a son half the time, and he's with us. So it's knowing how to have the I love this word, the balance. Everyone talks about the work-life balance, right? How do you create the right work-life balance? Well, when it comes to work-life balance, that is going to look completely different to each individual person.
Yeah.
You and your partner might have a completely different idea of what work-life balance is, but at least get on some type of common ground of what that is going to be, right? Like there's times I know where I'm working on, I'm a consultant, so I'm working on 2 or 3 projects at a time, and I might have a busier, or a month or a week or amount of time that's going to be busier than others, and she knows that that's my highest value, and she can step up and help with like daycare pickups and drop-offs, or making dinners, or cleaning up and doing bath time. Like it's not even something that I necessarily have to ask for. It just is like it's there, and she just knows in a way to like pick up the slack in a way, because we've communicated so much before what's important to us, what we want to create, but we're also on the same. Like it's not a surprise. Like she knows what I'm working on and creating for the family, what I'm saving up for, what the main focuses are, and vice versa. So
yeah,
when we see like, oh, most people come in and be like, man, we have family out of town, and Ian's only been down for a couple hours this trip, and he's been working a lot, and there's family in town right now. And that might be so weird to them, or this is so outside of the normal. But for us, it's like, well, this is just a season we're in now. Like we had a communication around this. We talked about it. I knew it was going to be like this. I agreed to it. I asked, like it's and not caring what those other people think.
Yeah.
Or we'll travel and see your family, and have the post up in hey, is there an office I can work out of for a little bit? And that's just a value.
So I think that we not only establish like what our goal is in that season, but we also prioritize and schedule time for both. And I think that that's really so important to remember when you are going, especially into seasons where you maybe are hustling a little bit harder. The individual time is still just as valuable, even if it's not as much. And I think that we can sometimes, I know for myself, I can do like all or nothing. Like I'm going to go all into this goal, or I'm going to do all this or all that, when the reality is that it's not sustainable. So I think that intentionally scheduling time on either end is what does help us create that balance, you could say, even though the time looks different for both of us. Like, I know I need my yoga time. I need like my journal. I need my reflection time. That is super important to me. So even if it's just is something as simple as 20 minutes a day, like that is something that's a non-negotiable. So scheduling that time for yourself, because you can't give from an empty cup. And if you want to create a dynamic relationship, taking care of your self first is so important.
And not taking advantage of your partner or anyone in your life, right? Like that's really easy for you to take advantage of someone, like, oh, they're doing this and now, oh, they can do that too. And oh, they picked up my son and they dropped my son off and they covered him during this meeting. Yeah, she can make dinner too. I mean, she's already down there, and you take, opposed to, yes, there's going to be times in a relationship where there's taking, and there's going to be times where there's giving. And there's like, it's truly never 100% equal in a relationship, right? It's either someone's giving more, someone's taking more, someone's, more engaged on this side or the other. So that's also just knowing that, yeah, if someone is going above and beyond to help you, right, because of the season of your life is more demanding, or you're working more, or you're having to spend time with a sick family member, whatever it is, realize that person is what they're doing for you, and go out of your way to do the things like she said, like, hey, I know that she has to journal. She does to do mind-setting work. She needs to do yoga and breath in the morning. Like that's a non-negotiable. So I need to create my schedule around that. If that means that I'm waking up a little bit earlier, or we're leaving the house early, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like she's going out of her way to help me. So the least I can do is go out of my way to make it make sense for you.
Yeah. And once you schedule that time, so you have that time that you need, it doesn't mean that that's like in stone forever. And so I think that something we're really good at is checking in with each other to figure out what adjustments need to be made. So if you feel like something isn't working, it doesn't mean force it harder or just hope that it clicks at some point. Like if you have dysfunctions or, things that you're not feeling super great about in your relationship, talk about it. I mean, figure out, how can we adjust this? Where can I schedule this time in maybe differently to where it's more beneficial for me? And I know that changes depending on the season of life we're in or what my personal goals are. But definitely checking in for the adjustments is huge.
Yeah. I mean, we check in pretty. I used to be a serial checker-inner, so you can check in too much, guys. It's a thing, and women. It is a thing, so don't check in too much, right? So don't take advantage of checking you okay? You good? We good? Can I do anything different? Are we okay? Everything's good? You good? Or just check in. So be careful with how much you're checking in. But yes, check-ins are something that we do. Now we just kind of do them automatically. Like it just happens when we kind of just know when the other person needs a check-in, right? And you'll get to that point too where you figure out your partner, but it's not, I didn't have to figure her out. She told me. And that's the thing is, when someone tells you something, believe them. Yeah. If you ask a question and they tell you how they want to be treated, and then you continue to ignore them and treat them the way you're treating them, then that person's not truly feeling heard. Right? So that's another thing is a big thing that we talk about is just when there's a lapse in communication or expectations. It's like, I know now if I need something to ask for it, and typically if I ask for it, I might think that I'm asking too much, but she's always like, oh yeah, I got you. And like, no more problem. Right. When there's times where I'm like, I feel bad because she's waking up early. She's taking my son to school. She's picking him up. I'm on calls. The calls aren't going as good. So I'm not making as much money as I should be. So then I start feeling bad. Then it's like, okay, then I start, internalizing and mind reading. How can I do all this myself? How can I take all this off of her? And I'll do the drop off and the pick off, and I won't ask, and I'll try to speed this meeting in. And then all that does is stress me out through the rest of the day, and it takes away from our relationship. And she's like, why are you so stressed? Why you have to go? Well, you could have asked me. Like, you told me you had it covered. I did have it covered. You're right. I should have asked you to pick him up. So it's just being okay with asking, like, hey, I'm a little slammed this week. Do you mind picking up the slack and doing this? And being no, and be okay with that person saying no. Like, no, I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
Figure it out. And that's okay. Like, you're a big boy, girl. You can do that.
And also be okay with saying no, because there are
Yes.
times where you ask for help and it's not in my capacity to be able to help you. And so I do tell you no sometimes, because it's just important for you to say no as it is to say yes.
Yeah.
I think for sure.
So setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? Healthy boundaries.
And also, like, it's not your partner's job to meet their needs or meet your needs. It's not your partner's job to meet your needs. And so if you don't feel like your needs are being met, then how can you meet your needs for yourself? Like, how can you show up better for yourself that day? Are you communicating what you need? I think that it's important to take the personal responsibility and recognize that it's not your partner's job to make you happy.
Yeah, 100%. And I know a lot of times, like, we would sit down and we would set up routines, or we would do things, but it was always, we would do them together, and it was more or less one of us was always doing one or two things that the other person didn't want to do, or it was, so it's find something that works for you is basically what I'm saying in a nutshell, right? Find what works for you in your relationships. And if your routines are different in the morning, different at night, different throughout the day, like, that's okay. Right?
Yeah.
If you can have the same routines, more power to you, right? If you can do everything exactly the same and that works for you, that's awesome. But really, like, and also be open and adapt, like, be open to trying and trying new things.
Yeah.
Not a big reader, so I try to read here and there, right? That's 75 hard help with that. Other things, or I'm more of a visual, like, I'm more internal as external. Most people like to write their goals down, write their vision down, all that. I do it consistently all day long throughout the day. So it's just like we have different ways that we do the same thing. Like, she might sit down and journal and write her goals out, and I might sit down and do it on my phone, right? Or have a different way that's worked for me that works different for my thought process and stuff. So it's just realizing what works for you, because the more you focus on yourself, then the stronger your relationship's going to be together.
Yeah. And I think that it's just coming down to communicating what you need in a healthy way, because at the end of the day, we're just doing our best. And we both want to see each other thrive and be happy. And so I think that when you're showing up to a relationship with your cup full because you've taken care of yourself and you respect yourself to have healthy boundaries, you're willing to ask for help when you need it, and know that your partner respects themselves enough to honor themselves in that process, you're able to give so much more, because you're showing up for things that, like, not out of obligation, out of actual desire to do them. Like, when you're stressed and I'm able to help with school pickup and drop off, like, I genuinely enjoy doing those things because I know that you're contributing in other ways in that moment. And so I want to support you in that way. It's not because I feel like I need to or I should. It's because it genuinely makes me happy.
It feels good to do good things for other people.
Yeah. And my cup is full, so I'm not doing it for recognition or because I think that it'll make you love me more. I know that you're going to love me the same no matter what, even if I say no. But you also understand and respect me putting myself first. So I think that it also comes down to having the self-confidence to allow your person to put themselves first and to create space from you and to create what they need for themselves to be able to thrive.
Yeah, just like they said, it all comes down to like our genetics, right? Girls and guys are created differently. Girls have a lot of
Thoughts.
hormones and thoughts and stuff that they go through. Not saying that guys don't, right? Because you look at TRT and different things. So guys have their own stuff they go through, outside of that, but it's not talked about as freely as women's issues or women's, thought processes that are talked about in today's society. So that's another thing, is realizing that, like, it's okay to talk. And that's one thing I want to talk to all the guys about, and women too, some, is it's okay to talk about your emotions, right? We've always been taught to, like, hide your emotions, be a man, don't cry, suck it up, brush it off, you got this, like, it's going to be fine, everything will be good. When in reality, like, if you can open up and be intimate about what you're feeling and what you've been through, what you've caused, the pain you've caused, everything about your life, like, it just gets you that much closer to your partner.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that was hard for me to do in a lot of relationships previously, was like, I've had people ask me, like, do you even cry? Like, can you even cry? Like, I've never even seen you cry. Like, for so long, that was like, I would never let anyone see me be any type of emotional, right? And now I probably, like, cry more than she cries.
That's not true.
But she see me cry, and I'm not afraid to cry. So that's one of those things, that it's just be there, be true with your emotions, right? Be authentically yourself. And if you need something in a relationship, regardless of what it is, you're only going to get it if you ask for it.
Yeah.
So if something is not being met, if you're not being met, financially, if you're not being met sexually, if you're not being met emotionally, if you're not being met, whatever area of your relationship that's lacking, it's typically because you have an expectation that another person does not know. So if they don't know that you have an expectation, then how are they able ever to meet that expectation?
Yeah.
They might take the exact opposite of what you're thinking about the exact same topic. So it's being able to be, like, truly open with everything that you need, right? Or that you would want. I shouldn't say that you need, that you want in a relationship. So that way you can get closer to that.
Yeah. And I think that when you're creating your own level of independence in a relationship to create that closeness, knowing that from the other perspective, when the other person is creating that it's not rejection, that it's not abandonment, that it's not the person trying to get further away from you. When you're creating that self-love, when you're creating that relationship with yourself, it allows you to become closer to the other person. And I've witnessed this in my relationship with you, because this is the first relationship where I truly have put myself first. I've prioritized my values. I've respected my boundaries. I communicate what I need. And it's the first relationship where I have 100% been myself. There is that authenticity. There is that closeness. And so when you know yourself so well and you have that intimate relationship with yourself, you're able to show up as that with your partner, because you already have practice. If you haven't practiced loving yourself, how are you supposed to love somebody else? Like, you have to take care of yourself first. I always love the analogy of, like, being on the airplane. Like, if the masks fall down, put it on yourself first. Don't put it on everyone else. And for years, I was so busy worried about what other people would think of me. Was I a good friend? Was I a good partner? Was I all of these good things? So I was sacrificing in every area of my life, and I showed up consistently confused, exhausted, frustrated, when at the end of the day, I didn't know what I wanted. I was just trying to survive, trying to make everyone happy, trying to prove my worth, when if I had just actually taken some time to sit with myself and love myself and figure out what I wanted, then it would have created this filter that would allowed me to create those deeper connections that can really change your world.
Yeah. And like you said, for me, it was realizing that individuality, or you wanting to go do things on your own or with the girls or anything outside of me, was not a form of, like I said earlier, it was not a rejection. It wasn't abandonment. Right. But also it also comes into, I can see how people can view it that way based off of our, like we will talk a lot about language patterns, right? So language patterns in relationships. If you're only saying, oh, I can't wait until the girls trip, or I can't wait to get away from you, or God, I just need some space, or God, this, if you're painting it out to be a picture of escape or getting away from this individual, then you can't expect there not to be issues when that's brought up. Like, oh yeah, I'm going on girls trip. Oh yeah, I guess you can't wait to get away from me because you've said it 3 million times throughout in the last 2 weeks. Or so it's knowing that, hey, this is something that you've agreed upon. I know that she comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to go to a yurt with one of my friends, or I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to Miami for a weekend or whatever. I'd be like, cool. Like, can I help you pack? Do you need help with anything? Need me to help with the flights? Like, what's up? Like, I'd be totally cool with it and know that that's just her doing her thing with girls. She's going to have an experience. And I also know from experience coming back from those things, she's a much happier person. She's ready to go. We have some of the best sex. We have this, that. Like, it's always good. So she's coming back, and I'm like, coming back from her trip. Hell yeah. Like, got a new girl coming back. Let's go. Like, now I look forward to it. I'm like, when's your next trip? You got a trip plan with your girls? I think it's been a little bit. You might need one of those trips. So now it's like I'm on the exact opposite side of it. When in reality, I know that if I ever wanted to go to Dubai with the boys, or go on a men's retreat, or go to a concert, or go to, a club, if I was into that, or something that without a doubt she'd be 100% like, cool. Like, do you need me to drop you off? What's up? Do you need my help with anything? Are you good? Like, need help picking out clothes? Like, she'd be there. There would be no question. I wouldn't have to ask her permission. And so many people in relationships, I hear, I got to ask her. Let me make sure she's cool with it. What do you mean make sure she's cool with it? Like, if you have to make sure that your partner's cool with something, or if you have to get permission to do something, or if you're worried about doing something that you really want to do because it might upset this other person, then you have a lot of other issues to clear up. That's not the underlying issue. That's not really what's going on. It's either comes down to respect, support, trust, or openness, right? And there's one of those four missing in your relationship to cause you to have these reservations of, well, why are they doing this? Why does she need time away from me? Did I mess up? Do I need to do something differently? Like, what's really going on? Yeah.
I think it goes back to what I said earlier, that it's like the other person working on themselves isn't rejection or abandonment. And if you're taking it as that way, then it's a huge indicator that you have something really exciting you get to work on. Because once you work through that, imagine how much deeper and how much more connected you can feel with your person, knowing that you can also cultivate this incredible relationship where you can put themselves first, they can put themselves first, and then you can come together as both whole people instead of having this underlying fear of, if they're independent, they're going to leave me, or they're going to go find better, or they're going to cheat, or all of those thoughts that have been through my head before.
Hey, if you can find better, go for it.
Yeah, go for it. And showing up with that consistency and that self-love where it's like, I know what I bring to the table. And if you don't want to eat at my table, that's fine. Like, get out of the way and leave a spot open for someone else. But if you're just trying to get whoever you want to sit at your table, like, girl, get it together.
And it also comes back to self-love, right? It all stems to self-love. If you find yourself in a position, a relationship where you're like, man, I don't know what would happen if so-and-so left me. And if I didn't have this person in my life anymore, my life would be over and it would just be so horrible. And I don't know how I could ever do this again at this age. And then, like, you should be okay. Like, I know, and this is nothing against her or anyone else, I know that if we didn't work out, or if you left tomorrow, that I would be just fine.
Yeah.
Like, I would continue to thrive. I'd continue to hit the metrics and the goals I want to hit. Would it be a transition? Would it suck? Yeah, of course it would. Like, I'm a human, but at the same time, I know that you don't dictate my success, and I don't dictate your success.
Yeah.
Now we come together and we help each other be successful, and we help each other accomplish the goals we want to accomplish. But at the end of the day, success is all up to me. Success is all up to you. It's all individual.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah.
That's another thing, is you can't be looking for your life to be dictated through your relationship.
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Unless that's your highest value.
Unless it's your highest value. I mean, for some people it is.
Just as the old analogy goes, the absent makes the heart grow fonder. So if she needs some time alone, or if he needs some time alone, honor that time, and I promise when they come back, it'll be better, or it should. Well, thank you for tuning in to Green Flag Attraction. That was episode 3. We are coming to an end. We just wanted to remind you that if you're getting any value from this, and if this is making an impact in your life, make sure you go hit the subscribe button, like the channel, maybe even drop a comment of what you would like us to discuss on the next podcast.
What your favorite takeaway was. Like, what little nugget was your favorite from this episode?
Do you want more juice? You want less juice? What do you guys want? Let us know.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.